All right, so today this is actually the start of the new series called Real Talks, and I like this because this is an opportunity to really get to talk to real estate agents about the real things. Because there's a lot of things that you don't know or they don't explain to you in real estate school. And today's first guest is Caitlin Middle. Everybody knows Caitlin; she's amazing. But Caitlin's journey to being one of the top agents in the MLS was not an easy one. It didn't happen overnight. So we're going to get an opportunity to talk to Caitlin. She's got some points that she's going to be going over, and then we're going to open up to some questions and discussion. So let's go ahead and get started. So Caitlin, take it away.
Okay. Um, well, that's fun. I didn't know it was a series. Cool. So yeah, I don't know how much people actually know about me because I have not been at RE/MAX my whole career. I've been an agent 14 years now, and I was in. You see Sarah in the background. I started right out of college, and I originally am not from Kentucky whatsoever. And so when I came to Kentucky for college, I finished college here, and I started real estate classes right out of college, and then started real estate from there. So I did not have a big base of sphere of influence. I really didn't have any of that. So I kind of built my business from the ground up. And it took a long time to really get that going, to build lots of hard years. So if you are in your first 3 years or first 5 years, just know that this real estate can feel very hard. And there's gonna be lots of times where you're gonna want to feel like you want to quit. And I've been in those spots. I've been in those spots where you thought you were going to quit and move forward. But sometimes if you hang in there and you keep going, it can pay off to look like this. So like I said, I've been 14 years. I started at Rector Hayden Realtors, which was a great experience coming into the business. They taught a ton of foundation, lots of really great things. I think out of my incoming class of 5 people, only 2 stayed in real estate, which is a pretty common trend we see. And we were really young. So I was really thankful that I was given a great mentor who was she was a legend of a mentor. She was 65 at the time. She had been president of in KRC and all that stuff, and she was kind of coming down in her career, but I was lucky to have her because she helped me stick to the basics, understand what ethics and everything looked like in real estate, and stick to it. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. One thing you don't learn coming into real estate because you have no clue is all brokerages are not the same. They're all very different structured. And so if you've only been at RE/MAX, count yourself lucky. Because all RE/MAXs are not the same. The commission structures are very different. There's lots that are fixed. There's lots that are flexible. And then there's lots of trainings versus there's lots of support in offices. So that's one of the things that's not really talked about, is like you pay for what you get, but also you very much experience the differences in brokerages. So know what you're getting. And at RE/MAX Elite here, one of the things you're getting is, and one of the reasons that I came to RE/MAX Elite, one was our broker is dynamite. She's very good at what she does. And in the real estate industry as a whole, she's one of the best. So that was also it, as well as a big difference in the forward thinkingness. RE/MAX as a brokerage is not like others, where RE/MAX is very forward thinking, it's forward moving, it's getting ahead of what is coming to us. And as real estate agents, man, you see so many changes that happen constantly. So much constant changes in our market. So much. We've had contract changes, lockbox changes, we've had industry changes, commission changes. So RE/MAX as a whole has been a huge thing. It's one of the reasons why I left and transferred from my other brokerage, was there was not a lot of forward moving systems, and we've seen we've seen that play out. So another thing that people don't talk a ton about that I've kind of learned is you really, this is a career. And I know if you're early on, it doesn't feel like it's a career. You feel like you're paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes we feel that way for lots of years, but this is absolutely a career, and you have to build it as a career. Whether you know if you're going to stay in this for the long haul or not.
Sorry,
Paul's listening to himself. But you know, this is a career, so you need to be thinking, how am I presenting myself as a professional every day? How am I, you know, what is your consistency? I think that's one of my successful things that I've done in my business is I've been very consistent of who I am, what my brand is, what kind of marketing I do, and how that has kind of changed. The consistency of staying in front of people, my mailings. So consistency is ridiculously the key in real estate for me. But there's also things like, I mean, taxes and retirements and savings accounts. Like, how do you, in real estate, how do you get out of paycheck to paycheck? And how do you actually have a savings account for when you don't have closings for 3 months, or you don't have closings for a month? Because it really sucks, and it's hard to get through those periods of time, and you're just waiting for the next paycheck. So, you know, looking into that and investing in yourself and having retirement plans and stuff. Those are things that I've learned over time that we've put in effect for my family. I started this career off as a single girl, and then I got engaged and I got married through real estate. I got my first baby, and then from there, I've worked real estate through all seasons of my life. Where there was a lot of uncertainty. So, you know, I've had 3 biological children, and we've had 4 foster children through 14 years of marriage, through 14 years of real estate. So it's been a lot of different seasons, and how the shifting of seasons matters. Whether that's if you have an elderly parent you're taking care of, or there's sickness, or real estate can still work in different seasons of life. It just might look different. So just know that you can get through those seasons, and shifting is normal. So one other thing about remembering it's a career, not a paycheck always, is, you know, this kind of ties into professionalism, but one thing that's always stuck out to me is Crystal Towell. Tal and I had a great conversation, like, I don't know, a couple years ago. And we were very similar in this. It's like, sometimes making sure the client has a happy transaction and a happy closing, a happy end to your transaction, because that's what they remember is the end. So if it's a nightmare, or if it's everything else is great, but the end is awful, that's what sticks with them forever. And that's going to keep you from referrals. Potentially, it's going to keep them from remembering you because it was painful. So sometimes if there's a problem that you can throw a little money at to get out of the deal and make sure they have a good response to it, don't be afraid to do that. Crystal and I were talking about, like, there's times I've paid for an electric inspection, or there's times that I've paid for a refrigerator. There was times that we had to pay for boxes or moving truck in a extreme situation, because that service led to referrals down the way, which it could have been the end of everything. I made a mistake the other day where I ridiculously lost a key to a house that I was closing. I put it in my pocket. I didn't label it. I did all the things I shouldn't have done. And I have a minivan. I drive a minivan. So, like, it was gone. The key was gone. And I had closing, and I sat there going, okay, so I'm paying to get out of this right now, paying to make this a positive experience. So I paid to literally that day, because my client should have had a key that day. So what I did is I did the right thing. I called my locksmith. I had him come over. I had him rekey the whole house and give them 2 brand new keys, and made it a great experience. And that closing, that experience with that client's already leading me to $1 million deal in 2 years. So, like, sometimes you just have to pay your way out of it. You suck it up, and you just swallow it, and you move forward. I always say, and my mentor always told me, like, you always do the right thing. You'll just always do the right thing, even if it sucks. But one other thing I don't think people think about in this business is realtor relationships. It has been a long factor. I think, we know that there's realtors in this business that are not great. They don't answer their phones. They're not good at what they do. They're not our favorite people. But those relationships with agents make or break the deals of your future. If that agent in a multiple offer sees your name come across and they do not like you, you better believe that's going to sway some decision making. The lack of confidence that they will have in you. I have seen it time and time again. If there is agents that I have a good relationship with, or I have made a point to not have a bad one with, even when a deal went south, that I always would have a favor in a certain situation. Not breaking any laws or anything like that, but if two offers look the same and to the seller they present it the same, they say, well, this agent's really great and a good communicator, and this one, sometimes that's the factor. Sometimes that's the reason that I've been picked. And it really has made a huge difference. Or if my client is not the best qualified client for that house, but they said, I trust Caitlin and we're going to go with her. So that has been a major thing. Same thing when I've had multiple offers on my listings. I'm looking up, it's always a factor with agents, because I also know what agent's better to handle with inspections, which one's going to put in the extra energy in. And then I also look at the agents I've had experience with that have blundered, or they've not been honest, or they made a mistake and were careless. So everything you do with an agent in this industry will come back. It will always matter. So treat agents you don't even like well. Do better to another agent, even if it costs you, because that relationship will always matter. It will always come back on some level. It just always will. So agent to agent relationships is a huge thing that I've learned, and I've really made a priority in my business. So another thing that I feel like in this business, it's like a sole focus for me is you hear agents say, well, I got into this business because I love houses, or I think they're so interesting. And I laugh because I'm like, I don't care about houses. I care about people. Like, the people getting them into houses is the point of real estate. Like, real estate isn't really about houses at the end of the day. It's about your relationships with people. Real estate is a people business. The houses are part of that, but and I'm all about learning everything you can from your inspector. I go to every inspection. I know Christy would tell you don't do that. I go to every day inspection, because I want to see what they're talking about as an inspector. I want to know and be educated as an agent so I can point out things and be knowledgeable, and also and just be learning, because I feel like if you're present with your client, it shows the care and the level of investment you have with them. And they still make their own decisions, but it's helpful, in my opinion. It's always been something I always do. So everything is a domino effect in real estate. One closing, one good experience leads to that referral. And then from that referral, 10 years down the road, it's another referral. So if you have consistency within your own business, those referrals from your first client, your first two clients, my first client 14 years ago still sends me referrals. So and I've probably closed 6 to 7 deals from them. And it is a domino effect. If it's working the right way, that's what you're building off of a foundation to continue. So everything you do is not wasted. So you need to continue to look at it that way as you build that business. I remember literally, I've got a client who was using another realtor. In the beginning, I've known them. I've created a relationship with them, not because I was trying to steal them from their realtor, but because I know at some time and point, they could change their realtor. And I liked them. And so 7 years of investment later, I sold their $1 million house 2 years ago, and then they referred me someone else. So every person is an investment, a potential client down the line. And you want to be mindful of that, even if they have another realtor now. You know, be the person that you are. Let them know what you do, let them see what you do. And if they change their minds down the road, or a circumstance happens where their realtor's out of the business, or their realtor has died, or their realtor has like moved on with their life, then you're right there because they're watching you, you know. So you want to just make sure you always see it as that. You know, you're always involved in that way. So I think that's one of the biggest things is just, for me, one of the biggest things to keep doing as a realtor is always keep learning. You need to be learning constantly. You need to be doing designations, not just to gain clients, because designations to me don't earn you business as much. Like, it's a good thing to show and say, hey, look what I've done. I think I've had maybe 2 clients say, wow, you have this designation, I'm going to hire you. Out of 14 years, 2 people. And I think I've done over, I don't even know. I'll have to look back, see how many transactions I've done, because I've got a running list because I like to keep track of everything very much. So just be a learner, be asking for help. I've spent many, many days in an office. Yeah, we work out of our car all day long, but being in the office to ask your broker, to brainstorm with other people, to keep you focused on what you're supposed to be doing, versus just kind of being on your own, it's made a huge difference. Showing up for meetings, showing up for classes. I've got a small group of ladies from Rector Hayden that I still know and are friends with, that we literally have group chats that we're like texting, hey, do you have this person? What about this situation? What about this contract? We've been doing that for 10 plus years now with them. And then, you know, I've got a group here that I'm like, okay, I know who I can call. I know who I can get a hold of. So be an active learner in your business. If I am not pushing forward to a goal about learning, then I'm starting to fade. In this business, you have to keep moving no matter what. You just can't stop working. You can't stop, but you have to. I don't really stop very often, but it's you have to keep momentum. If your pipeline is slowing down, okay, then let's see, what else can I be doing to invest in myself? What am I doing to invest in my clients? It's a big thing. So just know, learning and being a person who is a learner is a big deal in this industry for the long term as well. So, because everything changes in real estate, it feels like. There's always waves. Really, there's waves of business is what you start feeling. It starts to even out at a certain point, but I think for at least 7 to 8 years, there was waves in business where it's like I had a big wave of clients, and then you kind of drops down and you're like, oh gosh, and you have to start working again. So it gets to the point where you learn how to be more consistent and to really help keep it that way. So those are my notes.
Okay.
That's my soapbox.
All right. So there was a lot in there. And so here's what I want to do. Now, we got just a lot of information at once. What I want to do is break some of this down and ask some questions. So for anyone that's on Zoom, if you want to start typing out some questions, I'm going to have a couple, and then we'll try to answer any questions that you may have. And, you know, this can be about, you know, you're talking about 14 years worth of experience here that you can ask anything right now. So just type it out. Susie is on the computer, so she can see all of the questions that you have. Or if you want to unmute yourself, if maybe we can hear you, you can ask the question. But first, I didn't realize that, I guess I did, but I never put together that Caitlin has been doing real estate the exact amount of time that she's been married. So you
have I?
Yeah, so 14 to 14, yeah. So
Hold on.
so you're what? Your anniversary?
I've not been married 14 years.
You know, I think you said.
Hold on. I'm trying to think. Oh gosh. I've not been married 14 years. I've been married, it'll be 12 years in March.
Okay.
So 2 years without a husband.
So you have a long relationship with real estate than you do with.
I do. I was poverty level for 2 years in our marriage. Before, well, not anymore, 2 years before I met him, I was like poverty. And then when 1 year married, I was still poverty level. I did 7 deals my first year. I did 14 my next, no, 12 my next. And you know, it's, you can't really, back in the day also is lower commissions.
All right, so let me ask you, so, all right, let's go back to the very beginning. Now, so was there something you wish someone had told you during your first year? Like, and I'm sure there's a lot of different things, but what's one thing you wish somebody would have, Caitlin, here's this piece of information in your very first year?
I don't know if this answers that question. But the thing that comes to mind is, it's worth it. I didn't know if it was going to be worth it or not. And to look back on that first year, I mean, God bless my broker. I mean, she would give me gift cards to eat. And, you know, that's how bad it was sometimes. It was hard. And I went in full time. I mean, I've been a full-time agent since day one. I wasn't a part-time, so I didn't really have any like nets. Didn't have any nets. I think I wish somebody had told me it's going to be worth it. So that you know, they encouraged me along the way that it would be, but I think if I had known that, it would have helped me hold on even harder, you know, because it's cool to look at where I am now, but like I would have never dreamed of where I am now my first year.
And see, to me, and this isn't something I have written down, but I think that's something that's so real that I think it's great for people to hear because, you know, because of social media now, what do we see? We see the highlights. And we always compare someone else's highlights to our behind the scenes. And everybody's had some struggle at some point. And so to hear like, listen, like, you know, like somebody gave you gift cards to help make sure that you were eating. Like, you know, most people are like, oh gosh, you know, Caitlin's just a rock star and always, you know, just been top of the list there. But it's not always the case.
No, because I mean, my business looks different too, where like I know some agents who've started in real estate and they've just kicked it so hard and they've been awesome. But I had no sphere of influence. I mean, you can build a business from nothing. I think that was the thing. You can build a business from nothing and have nothing and be young. Or you could be wherever you think you are disadvantaged. And in real estate, it doesn't matter. But if you continue to work hard, if you stay focused, if you do what you're trying to do, it will pay off. It doesn't matter the excuses that you have for yourself or that society tells you. I mean, I had a broker tell me you need to look older. You know, she's like, you need to look older to get these deals, you know? So it just, yeah, whatever disadvantage you feel like you're in, you can overcome in real estate.
Oh, that's great.
So,
all right. So one of the things I heard you mention a few times was consistency. So, other than not starving, what really what helped you stay consistent?
You know, I think we have nobody who's our boss really in here. So, I mean, we do, but not, you know, you are your own boss. And so setting a schedule, having a purpose every morning, I'm a checklist girl all day, because that's the only thing that keeps me focused and going in a direction. So I think you have to have goals and you have to have like, really a way to achieve those. And that's step by step consistency. Like I said, showing up in the office, going to education moments, going to learning, being around agents. I've had people who've just said, can I just ride with you in the car one day and just hear what you have to say? Like as I'm driving with like my kids like old stuff in the back, you know, and I'm like, just, if you want to learn from me, you're running with me. Like we're not stopping. So, yeah, I feel like consistency in that's the beginning. When you start to get into a level of production that's a little bit higher, when you're in like when you're selling over 7 million in inventory, it starts to shift. Your consistency looks like your mailings, it looks like your marketing, it looks like your campaigning. I'm sure it looks like social media these days. Social media, I was better at, and now it's changing and I'm struggling because now I'm old. And so but like, it's the consistency in being in front of your clients. I mean, I do 2 scheduled mailings a year. I do quarterly mailings as well on top of that. And then I do a pop by, and then I do this. So like I do a lot of stuff that is not email related because emails have become inefficient in my business. I'm sure other people would argue with that, but for me, mailings and being in front of them and being tangible has been the best way to keep consistency in front of people. So I think it does change when between the levels of inventory you're doing. My first 7 years, I could say this, and then the last 7 years, I could say it's kind of changed and shifted in what I needed and what I needed to do to stay more consistent. So,
okay, a couple of questions from Zoom. Joy Watson is asking, when it comes to consistency in real estate, what is your number one handicap to that consistency and how do you overcome it? And then second question, do you have a morning routine or affirmations you use to keep your mind in the right place? If so, what is your routine look like?
No, Joy, I have 4 children. My routine is I'm getting up and getting out of the house. For me, I cannot work at my house because if I work at my house, I'm doing everything else because I have a long list of things and people I need to take care of. So for me, getting in the office is the way to stay consistent, that I'm focusing on my work and not focusing just on my house during the day. So, so whatever that looks like for you, I know some people do coffee stuff and all that. I struggle with some of that. And I don't do affirmations. I do pray a lot. A big reason I got into this business was feeling called to it. So I pray a lot, and honestly, sometimes my girls who I text and know that are people who will point me the right direction when I'm down. I think Lacey kicked me in the butt yesterday and said, "What are you doing? You need to do this." And I was like, okay, so the people who are going to tell you the truth, get to those people. That would be my thing. Handicap was
staying consistent. What's one of the things that is a handicap in trying to stay consistent? So
like a bad thing that would not keep you consistent.
Yeah, but yeah, possibly and Joy, if you want to unmute yourself, just so you can clarify. But I'm just thinking if you were trying to stay consistent, but you're working from the house, then laundry and all these other things, maybe that could change.
Yeah, spot on. You guys did a great job. Paul was asking the question right after I sent my questions. So you've already addressed it, getting out of the house and coming into the office. Yeah, you gave me the answer.
It helps my mind as well as my body make sure I'm and I'm ADD, probably ADHD. Carolyn and I joke about this because she's a whole different ADHD than I am. But I have to have structure and I have to have things that reminds me what to do. Because my mind gets overwhelmed and I can't stay focused. So I think really just keeping yourself on track and then having goals that you're meeting, and like I said, I think if you start to feel like you're not doing something, you need to start doing something. There's always something to do. There's always handwritten notes you could send. There's always open houses that you could show up to. There's always, just getting in the office and following up with clients, doing social media. So if you feel like you're not doing something or there's a reason, just get busy doing something would be my recommendation.
And it's funny because one of the questions I got from Joy the other day was she asked about what's something that I could do, and I was like, come to the office, just come to the office. And I think this is one of those things you've touched on a couple of times. They don't tell you, and maybe it's not for everybody, but I'll tell you, the top producing agents I see at Remax or Realty, not every single one, but a majority I see in the office all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's true through all real estate offices. I will say at Rector Hayden in my days, there's big producers that were there. And I learned, and I got to be around them. And so, and some of them are still very much in the business. Honestly, I don't think anybody retired. Some of those top producing agents they're so consistent. They would literally be in that office every day. I mean, and I was so I learned by watching those producers that are producing what I am and more, because their consistency was very thorough. We're there, we're working kind of deal. So, yeah.
Totally with that. Time stop going, I start to see a difference. So it's hard when you get really busy. So if you start going to the office, I think it's a key thing to remember. Once you start getting really busy, you're like, well, I'm gonna work from home now, and then you can't because you got to keep going to the office because there's more to be done.
Yeah. I think it just is good too, because like, I mean, I've been in here many days where I'm like, I don't know why I'm coming to the office, but I'm gonna just go. And I'm just gonna, at least for an hour or two work here. And believe me, I'll wear Susie and Christy out if they're here. Like, just going, what about this? Or what about, or Paul too? Like, what about this? Or, and so just so you know, like, even when you're been doing it as long as I have, and there are a lot of other people in our office have been doing it more, we constantly are trying to figure out what to do in deals. We don't always know the answer, because everything's different sometimes. So it's cool, but that's kind of how I feel about that one.
Well, Janet Jones is actually here in person. So
Okay.
Janet, do you have a question?
I have a question that's gonna be a probably odd one, but if you have a buyer interested in a property that is very overpriced, and you do a CMA on this property and find out that if to even come near the asking price for the that's currently marketed at, you probably would just be set up for failure, because they're not gonna, when you find out that speaking to the selling agent that they're not negotiable and they're way overpriced, how do you handle that? Do you send that selling agent your CMA and say, this is where I am? Yes, this might have been justified back in December 2024, but I have 3 that's closed in 2025, and we'll be lucky to get, within 40,000 of that offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it comes down to sometimes feeling the agent out. Agents will talk too much all day long. Oh, your water, Chrissy.
That's all right.
So I think really feeling that agent out and seeing what their response is, if they're open at all to a discussion or if they're not. To me, it's always worth writing an offer, because if you write the offer and they reject it and you say, hey, here's our offer. I know it's not what you want, but I want to present this because based on these 3 comparables, we feel this is the price for this property. Because even if you present that in a respectful way, and they say, nope, thank you, goodbye, they could still come back to you 2 months, 3 months later, if your clients are still there, and go, oh, you know what, actually, I think we're ready now to do this. So always in real estate, do not burn a bridge. If you write an offer and you know it's probably going to be rejected, one, you just never know, because I've had the opposite. I've had lots of people say, I'm not negotiable, and then all of a sudden they are. So you just never know. And then 2, it just, letting it be what it is, because sometimes they will start the conversation later on, if you're still around. So, and then sometimes sellers have to kind of sit with it and kind of, work with it too. Sometimes the sellers need to see an offer and grapple with it.
This circumstance where the seller was a realtor.
Well, all realtors are not the same. Then, you could always, if their conversation is, well, this is what I want from a property, then I'd go, well, do you have an appraisal that reflects that? That would be a question I would ask. Do you have an appraisal that reflects this? Or are you open to having an appraisal?
Right.
Because an independent appraisal is very different than a house appraisal in a loan. So an independent appraisal typically, in my experience, comes in high, and then a loan appraisal will come in lower. But if it helps bridge the gap, it's a good question to ask. And it's not accusatory, because if you start pitting yourself against that agent, their response will not be good. So you have to kind of, try to create a relationship and then ask questions they can answer. So.
Okay. So I ask this, I want to ask about referrals, because, and I just noticed, because I've joined some of the RE/MAX referral Facebook groups, and I've seen you in there. I know you recently just got a referral, and then you were looking for a referral. So what's something that you've learned about referrals? Were you working your referrals or looking for referrals at the beginning of your business?
So I think I knew about referrals early, because my other brokerage had a relocation department, and that was really helpful. I didn't get relocations very often in the beginning, but I knew about them. So it helped me be aware of, there was a lot of sister companies within different companies. Keller Williams will will network through all the Keller Williams offices. Remax does the same thing through all the Remax offices. And Rector Hayden's part of Berkshire Hathaway, and they have their own networking. So whatever real estate office you're in, except the small private ones, which are much harder to send referrals from and get referrals from, in my opinion. That's one of the big pluses in being in Remax, is because you have a much greater referral network than you would at a smaller private brokerage. That's just, I mean, I see agents all the time that suffer from that. So in targeting referrals and getting referrals, it's real. I've seen realtors contact me and find me because of Zillow, because that's what an easy way to search. I've seen people find me on the Remax referral network, but really it's word of mouth and who you know within Remax as well, or other agents that are referring you. And so it's been interesting. I've been trying to continue to push into referrals and on a bigger network. That's kind of one of my goals, is to continue to broaden that resource. But yeah, I just referred an agent to a Keller Williams agent, which wasn't really the plan, but I found her through a client and it kind of worked out beautifully. I just found another one through the Remax referral network on Facebook for North Carolina. And then I just got one from Massachusetts that came in. But I've had a lot of clients and agents refer me business that have found me on Google or Zillow. So your online presence matters a ton. That's where people are searching. Word of mouth and where people are searching is the biggest factors for sure. I got a referral from Michigan for an $800,000 house earlier last year, and that was awesome. And they were emailing, or they were interviewing different agents, but she was not in Remax. You know, she was just trying to find a good fit for her client, and you know, it matters. So
I think it's great. So going to those referrals, to me, you have to, if you want those referrals, first you have to work it, but then you also have to stand out, which to me means that and you just said your online presence, so your brand has to stand out. So what's a way that over the last 14 years that you've created your brand, whether it be intentionally or even unintentionally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you have to hone into the things that you're good at, which is a lot of your story too. Like, you know, in the beginning, the only thing I could represent was, hey, I'm at a big brokerage with lots of cool agents and I work hard. That was the biggest thing I could do. I also pulled from, I'm a military brat. My dad was a career Marine, so like I could push into the VA stuff. I could push into, farms early on, although it didn't, it took a long time for farms to catch for me. But, anybody in the horse world, I could catch in that, because we have that hobby in common. So I think, that was a big thing, was finding anything I could that was in common with someone else, or that could give me like street cred. And then now it's kind of shifted to, I think I get a lot more referrals based off of my experience, the amount of business I tend to do. And in Remax, I've seen there's been an uptick with some, when you're at a certain levels, people are seeing that. So it's interesting. But I think just strategic networking matters, because you don't have to be top, 1 or 2 in the company, top 5 in the company to be getting referrals all day. Like there's lots of people who are getting referrals. It's just making sure you're active, you're out there, and you're finding your niche. I think there's niche referrals that really come. So they always say in these classes you take, shift your niche, put your niche out there. Janie used to have a career before this. Well, use that as a niche, get that clientele that has been in that. Or so it's, my husband's an engineer, and so I try to push into that sometimes of like, I know how to talk to an engineer, because sometimes they're rough, it's like, there's just niches you can find all over that you wouldn't think. Because as soon as I start talking to a client, I'm like, oh, so you've visited Maryland. Great. We could talk about Maryland. Or, oh, you're in the military, or you have something in the military. So I'm always looking for something in common with every client, every lead, to try to connect with them. Because if you actively have to be connected, because as soon as you can connect with somebody, they'll remember you. So.
Yep. And just remember that Kaylin is originally a Maryland girl, so if you want to talk crab cakes,
Oh,
this woman knows crab cakes.
Love
And
it,
So,
love it.
All right. So a few more questions first. I want to see if there's anybody on Zoom that has any more questions because I see a few people in here. I see Carolyn Hager, Cindy Van Winkle,
Carolyn.
Meg Muddlemath, Michelle, Susie, I think Joy. So are there any questions that have been typed out, Susie? If you have a question on there, just unmute yourself and just blast the question out there.
Just blast it.
Just blast it.
Just blast it.
Okie dokie. So I do have a few more questions and then we'll let you wrap it up. So one of the things that, and you kind of talked about this briefly, but something they don't tell you getting a real estate are taxes and retirement. So as you know, a lot of times with real estate, it is feast or famine. But you don't want to live like it's feast or famine. So what's a tip that you would give to somebody in regards to, whether it be putting money away or making sure you don't have this tax bill that you're not ready to pay?
Taxes. Yeah, this has been a learning experience for me. I'm not a numbers person per se. Like I don't love accounting. I don't love any of that. But I think just knowing, we see a lot of agents that are really old in real estate because they haven't saved for retirement, so they can't retire. So yeah, word to the wise, the longer you're in, you need to be saving for retirement. Out of every paycheck, this was one of my mandatory things when I came to RE/MAX, and I don't know if I should say this, but one of my mandatory things when I came to RE/MAX was I had a account set up at Rector Hayden where every paycheck they'd pull money and they would put it into account with partnering with another company. And so when I came here, I said, I have to have that because I'm not responsible enough to save money. Like I need some sort of auto system to do it for me. So, yeah, every paycheck, a certain amount goes into retirement. And then every paycheck, an amount goes into a tax savings account because I am not responsible enough to save that money on my own. And if it's in my account, I want to make sure it's there. So I think having a system and making sure that you have a system that sets you up really well. You could also make sure that you have a savings account for your business and a credit card for your business, easier to track expenses, like very responsible adulting things that will help you on a tax level. And then also make sure, like I was saying earlier, there's long stretches that sometimes we don't have closings and we can't control that, and so if you have kind of a savings account or a checking account, whatever you want to use, so that on the off months, you still pay yourself out of that account, it kind of covers that and helps you not stress and worry about money, but focus on what you should be doing, which is continuing to work the process, continuing to work in your business so that when it starts to happen, you refill that account again. So, ideally you want to have a system in place so that real estate's not just paycheck to paycheck because it shouldn't be ideally. So.
Okay. All right. So if there's no questions online, I got one more question. So no questions online. All right. So this will be the final question. So success looks different for every single agent, but do you think there's a couple of common habits that the most successful real estate agents really kind of have?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a people business. So if you are not interacting with people that can eventually become clients or that could refer you to clients, that's lacking. So I think when we get really busy in business, we start to cut out extracurricular activities or hobbies or whatever. Or if you're a parent of small children, that's all you do. I think you have to stay involved in your community. You have to stay involved in different things where you can meet people and organically get referrals as well, because in business. So I think top producers are staying involved in their community. I think the consistency, like I've said, is so key. And reinventing consistency. Like I've had to change the way I'm consistent, change the way that I market. I do one client event a year. Like a lot of other bigger producers are doing multiple ones, but I can't do that. I can't do that. I can do one event. That's all I can do. But I make sure that I'm staying on their fridges, in their faces, in their mailboxes, on their social medias. So consistency, being involved, and I really think learning is probably one of my other things. It's just learning, being around bigger agents. You can talk to Paul at R4. My biggest goal at R4, other than connecting with agents, is to literally be in the rooms with the biggest agents that are doing high production, because I want to know what's working for them in their markets. I want to have a better idea of how to make it a holistic thing, because any agent you are, no matter what year in real estate you are, I can end it with this. Any year of real estate you are, you always deal with moments of imposter syndrome. You always are like, how am I ever gonna, do this? Or can I do this? Or, you just question yourself constantly. So, I think it's not constantly, but there's a lot of moments you question yourself and really go, can I make this happen? Or can I work with this client? Or can I find this house? Because you get presented with all these things. So just know, no matter where you are, we are all dealing with that. And even the top producers are always trying to figure out what the next move is, what the next thing is. So real estate is worth it. Be consistent in your business, and always be really learning and humble enough to ask for help. If you are not humble in this business, you will fizzle out. This is a long game. This is not a short game, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, Jenny, you got one more question?
I have one more question, because I think it's so important. How do you choose, or what do you recommend to the realtors out there, how to not overpay or get too many lead sources that they're actually having to, they need a gift card to eat, because they've got these people taking money out of their account, and they won't stop once you let them.
I'm not the right person to ask that, because I never use lead sources. I've never paid for a lead source until literally this past year. I tried a realtor.com, like a listing hub thing, and I regret doing it because it was a waste of money. I've not used lead sources. I know there's other agents who have used them. They've been really successful with them, and that's awesome. There is so much stuff that is free in this business. I mean, you can get, last year I had one listing. I did 4 open houses. I ended up closing 10 transactions off of that. 10. I mean, so from multiple people I picked up from that open house, I just kept working it and working it and working it. And open houses are hit or miss. I mean, there is so much free stuff you can be doing in this industry, between social media, between open houses, between, the resources that RE/MAX does have. You should not be paying for lead sources if you cannot afford them, or you shouldn't be affording them, or you haven't tried the normal things first. You have to have a foundation before lead sources actually would benefit you, in my opinion. Lead sources are hit or miss. Mm-hmm. I know Lacey's had a fantastic time with it. I know another big agent who does wonders with it. But for me, it's never been an option, because I didn't have money in the beginning. And then at that point, I was really used to doing everything else to get business versus a lead source like that.
So. Okay, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that is it for this. So, Caitlin, thank you so much. This is awesome. This has been very requested. So so we're going to continue with some more real talk, because I just think it's a great opportunity to really get to sit down and just talk to people. And I think I already have our next guest for next month. I'm not going to announce it yet, but I think I know who next month is going to be. So as I said, so just be ready. They're like, oh, I'm super busy in July. I'm also super busy in August. Like, yeah, you work hard. So, but you can sit down for like an hour and talk. So, but I appreciate everybody jumping in online, in person, and this is great. So